I've been married to my wife for 7 years, together for almost a decade, and until a few months ago I would have told anyone who asked that we were solid. Not perfect, but stable. Shared routines. Inside jokes. Plans that stretched years ahead. Lately, though, something felt off in a way I couldn't put my finger on. Conversations shortened. Touches disappeared. She started guarding her phone like it held state secrets. At first, I blamed stress. Work had been rough for both of us, and she's always had a sharp edge when she's overwhelmed. But this was different. She'd snap at harmless questions, roll her eyes when I asked how her day was, act like my presence annoyed her. Then came the little changes that didn't add up: new clothes, sudden late nights, and a weird defensiveness whenever I mentioned her coworkers. I didn't think cheating right away. I thought distance. I thought burnout. I thought maybe I was failing somehow and hadn't noticed. I was still trying to fix something I didn't understand, unaware that the ground under our marriage was already cracking open. The late nights started stacking up fast. 1 or 2 a month turned into 2 or 3 a week. She'd come home irritated, smelling like a different perfume than the one she owned, and head straight for the shower without saying much. When I asked where she'd been, the answers were vague and inconsistent: work stuff, drinks with people you don't know, just needed air. Each time, the story shifted slightly. I noticed she stopped leaving her phone on the table. It was always face down now. Always locked. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd swipe the screen dark like she'd been burned. When I joked about it, she snapped that I was being paranoid and controlling. That stung more than I expected. What really messed with my head was how normal she tried to act afterward. She'd pick a fight over dishes or money, then suddenly be sweet the next morning, like flipping a switch. I kept telling myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. I wanted to believe her irritation was about me, because at least that meant she wasn't hiding something worse. The night that changed everything wasn't dramatic at first. She said she was staying late again, something about a deadline that magically appeared after dinner. I stayed up longer than usual, scrolling aimlessly, waiting for the sound of her keys. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was her name. My stomach tightened with relief. The message wasn't meant for me. It was short. Familiar. Intimate in a way that didn't leave room for interpretation. I stared at it for a full minute, convinced my brain had misfired. Then I saw the preview cut off, and beneath it, the contact name I didn't recognize. She must have sent it to the wrong person. Or meant to send it to someone else and sent it to me by mistake. My hands started shaking. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I sent a single text back, "What is this?" and watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, then nothing. In that moment, the unease I'd been carrying for months snapped into something sharp and unmistakable. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't insecure. I had just stepped into a reality I wasn't ready for. She came home an hour later, acting annoyed before I even spoke. I held up my phone without a word. The color drained from her face for half a second, then she recovered, rolling her eyes like I'd accused her of stealing a pen. She laughed. Actually laughed. Said it was a joke, taken out of context, that I was being dramatic. That lie lasted about 30 seconds. When I asked who the guy was, she said a coworker. When I asked why she was texting him like that, she said he was going through a hard time. When I asked why she sent it to me by accident, she said my name and his work close in her phone. None of it lined up. Her voice got louder as her logic fell apart. I asked to see her phone. She refused. That refusal told me more than any confession could. I reached for the device when she left it on the counter, and she lunged for it, knocking over a glass in the process. Water everywhere. Silence between us that felt deafening. When I finally unlocked it, my chest went hollow. Messages. Photos. Plans. Weeks of them. Not just flirting, full conversations about meeting up, about me being clueless, about how easy it was to lie. That was the moment something inside me broke cleanly in two. I don't remember raising my voice, but suddenly we were both shouting. She went from defensive to vicious in seconds, like she'd been waiting for permission. She accused me of invading her privacy, of being controlling, of pushing her into this. Said I'd been distant. Said I didn't listen. Said if I were a better husband, none of this would have happened. I threw the phone onto the couch and asked her one simple question: did you sleep with him? She said no. Too fast. No hesitation. Then she corrected herself and said, it depends what you mean by sleep. That sentence still rings in my head like a gunshot. I felt nauseous, dizzy, like the room tilted sideways. She kept talking, piling lie on top of half-truth, changing details mid-sentence when she realized they contradicted something else. Then, out of nowhere, she started crying. Big, dramatic sobs. Said she was confused. Said it didn't mean anything. Said she always loved me. 5 minutes earlier, she was blaming me. Now she was begging me not to overreact. The whiplash was unreal. I stood there realizing I wasn't just betrayed, I was being rewritten as the villain in my own marriage. After the shouting burned itself out, there was this awful quiet. She went to the bedroom and slammed the door like she was the one wronged. I stayed on the couch, staring at the wall, replaying everything I'd seen and heard. My body felt numb, like my emotions were stuck behind glass. I wasn't even crying yet. I just felt hollow. Then it hit me all at once. My chest tightened and my hands started shaking so badly I had to sit on them. Images I never asked for kept forcing their way into my head, her laughing with him, touching him, talking about me like I was some obstacle. I felt stupid. Embarrassed. Like everyone but me had known the truth. I went into the bathroom and threw up. Not from anger, but from the realization that the life I thought I had was gone. 7 years didn't feel real anymore. Every memory suddenly came with an asterisk, like it might have been a lie too. That was the moment I understood this wasn't just about cheating. It was about losing my sense of reality. I didn't sleep. At some point near dawn, she came out of the bedroom like nothing had happened and asked if I wanted coffee. The casualness of it almost broke me. When I didn't answer, she sighed and said we needed to be adults about this. No apology. No accountability. Just damage control. Over coffee she rewrote the night completely. Said it wasn't an affair, just emotional stuff. Said they only met a couple times. Said she ended it already. Each statement contradicted something I'd read with my own eyes. When I pointed that out, she snapped that I was obsessed and needed to stop digging if we were going to move forward. She even tried to make it sound noble, like she'd been sparing my feelings by lying. That one hurt the most. I realized then that the lies weren't panic, they were strategy. She wasn't trying to tell the truth. She was trying to see what version of the story I'd accept. And the more calmly she spoke, the angrier I felt. The anger didn't explode right away. It simmered. Every small thing set it off, the way she hummed while doing dishes, the way she checked her phone and smiled, the way she said my name like nothing had changed. I felt like I was living with a stranger who'd stolen my wife's face. I started asking questions I'd been too afraid to ask before. How long? How often? Did he know about me? Her answers came with sighs and eye rolls, like I was inconveniencing her. Sometimes she'd answer, sometimes she'd say she didn't remember. Once she told me I was being cruel for forcing her to relive it. That's when the rage finally boiled over. Not violent, just raw. I told her she didn't get to dictate how I processed being betrayed. She laughed and said I was being dramatic again. That laugh did something irreversible to me. In that moment, I stopped seeing her as my partner and started seeing her as someone capable of hurting me without remorse. The anger burned itself out faster than I expected, leaving grief in its place. Heavy, quiet grief. I found myself mourning things that weren't technically gone yet: our routines, our future plans, the version of her I thought I knew. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to tell her something, then remember who she'd become. She noticed the shift and suddenly wanted closeness. Sat too close. touched my arm. Told me we could fix this if I stopped dwelling on the past. The irony was suffocating. The past was barely a week old, and she was already trying to bury it. At night, when she slept, I lay awake listening to her breathe, wondering how someone could lie next to you for months while living a separate life. I wasn't crying loudly or breaking things. I was just quietly falling apart, piece by piece, in a house that no longer felt like home. One afternoon it hit me, not like a revelation, but like fatigue settling into my bones. I was tired of questions. Tired of guessing. Tired of watching her shapeshift depending on what she thought would work. I realized I'd spent days trying to understand her, when I barely recognized myself anymore. I stopped engaging in arguments. When she minimized, I didn't correct her. When she blamed me, I didn't defend myself. That scared her more than yelling ever did. She asked why I was being so quiet, accused me of pulling away on purpose. The truth was simpler: I was done chasing explanations that kept changing. In that exhaustion, something solid formed. I didn't trust her. Not her words, not her tears, not her sudden promises. And without trust, the marriage wasn't wounded, it was fundamentally broken. Saying that to myself hurt, but it also brought a strange sense of calm I hadn't felt since before everything blew up. A few days later, I decided we needed to talk about the future. Not shouting, not blaming, just laying everything out. I wanted honesty, no matter how ugly. She tried her usual tactics at first: half-lies, guilt trips. We can move past this if you forgive me. I cut through it. No sugarcoating, no excuses. I asked direct questions. Do you want to be married to me? Did you ever stop loving him? Are you willing to rebuild trust? Her answers wavered, shifting from yes to I don't know to maybe. Each word was like a small knife. It became painfully clear that she hadn't made any commitment to me or to fixing what she'd broken. The conversation ended with silence. Not the quiet before a storm, but the heavy, exhausted silence of two people staring at the gap between them and realizing it might be unbridgeable. I left the room feeling hollow, but also oddly relieved. I didn't have to wonder anymore what she really wanted. The next week was surreal. I went through our home like a stranger, noticing details I'd ignored before: her perfume bottles, old notes, the way our bed still smelled like her. Everything felt like a museum of a life that wasn't mine anymore. I made a list in my head of what I needed: honesty, respect, accountability. And for the first time, I admitted that I wasn't getting any of it. No apology would undo the betrayal. No explanation would restore the trust she had destroyed. Accepting that truth was brutal, but necessary. I also realized that staying in limbo, pretending we could go back to the way things were, wasn't fair to either of us. My grief had to coexist with action. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore, it was about preserving my own sense of self in the wreckage she left behind. I began to understand that moving forward would require letting go, whether she wanted to fight for us or not. And deep down, I knew she wouldn't. After a week of sleepless nights and quiet reflection, I made my choice. I couldn't ignore what happened, and I couldn't continue living in a house where I was constantly second-guessing her every word and action. Staying meant pretending the betrayal never happened, and I knew that would slowly eat away at me. I told her calmly, without yelling or crying this time, that I needed to step back. That I couldn't rebuild something with someone who hadn't truly committed to honesty. She protested, said I was overreacting, begged me to reconsider. But I could see through it. Her tears weren't remorse, they were fear of losing the comfort she still had in me. For the first time, I felt clear-headed in months. The decision wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about protecting myself, about reclaiming my life from the chaos she created. And even though it hurt like hell, I knew it was the right choice. The days after the decision were messy. I had to figure out how to live in the same space with someone who had destroyed so much of my trust. I set boundaries: time apart, separate spaces, no unnecessary conversations. I focused on routines I could control: exercise, work, small tasks that reminded me I still had agency. Emotionally, it was a roller coaster. Some moments, I felt rage bubbling up again. Others, an overwhelming sadness that made me feel like I'd been gutted. But gradually, the chaos started to feel less like a storm and more like a storm I could survive. I journaled, I vented to friends I trusted, and I reminded myself that the betrayal wasn't my fault. Through all of this, I started to reclaim pieces of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost: confidence, clarity, the ability to trust my own instincts. It was slow, but it was real. I realized that healing didn't mean forgiving her or forgetting, it meant finding my own footing in a life that now looked very different. Looking back now, I can see how much this experience reshaped me. I learned the hard way that love alone isn't enough when honesty and respect are missing. I also learned that it's okay to prioritize yourself, even when it means walking away from someone you once trusted completely. The pain is still there, but it's quieter now. I've started rebuilding my life on my terms: small steps, daily reminders that I deserve stability, truth, and care. I've realized that the betrayal wasn't just about her choices, it was about the boundaries I hadn't enforced and the instincts I hesitated to trust. If I could give advice to someone in the same situation, it would be this: pay attention to the early signs, trust your gut, and don't let anyone convince you that your pain is an overreaction. Healing takes time, and moving forward doesn't erase the hurt, but it does give you a chance to reclaim your life and eventually, to trust again. This chapter of my life is over, but the lessons stay with me, and I finally feel like I can step into the next one without carrying someone else's lies.